you're never really going to experience freedom. Because as a man thinketh, so is he. People are dying from a lack of knowledge. They're wasting their lives away because they're ignorant, ill-informed, and unread as to how the world works. Knowledge is the key. And unfortunately, too many people are preoccupied with watching television and sports and trying to make a dollar just to stay alive. They don't realize what's really going on behind the scenes in our country of America and around the world. For 3,200 years, Europe has dominated the world. Therefore, there is the old saying that all roads lead to Rome. So when you begin to see the wars and the tragedies and the things that are going on in the world today, the corrupt politics, the lies and the deception and the wars and incredible things which we're seeing, that people are becoming more and more concerned and worried about what's going on the world scene and where are we going as a civilization, especially Europe now and America. Just keep in mind that what you are seeing today, happening on the earth today, with all the wars and economic problems, etc., all has a pedigree, and all has a background which you need to understand. It's called the history of our country, the history of Rome, the history of the Roman Empire. And so this is why I have always wanted to uncover, so to speak, the hidden history of Europe, the hidden history of America, and in point of fact, the hidden history of the world we live in. Because as I said before, so much of our religion, our government, our commercial systems, our educational systems are all based on ancient concepts and belief systems. And unless and until you educate yourself as to how your world operates, you're never really going to experience freedom. Because as a man thinketh, so is he. And so one has to start thinking in terms of how would it be in your life if you were truly free, and what would the world be like if humans were actually free and no longer had slave owners, if the whole human race were free to do what they wish. We're not talking about anarchy. We're talking about legitimate government which protects the rights of all good people and allows individuals to be who they want to be and to do the best they can. And so this is what I have always wanted to do, is to help young people, especially young people, to understand where the world they live in has come from and how it got here. Because you cannot fix anything, you can't help any problem if you don't know how the problem started. If you don't, who was it? Albert Einstein said that you can't depend on the same people who caused the problem to fix it. So I believe that knowledge is power. And this is why so many people in America especially feel powerless, because they have no knowledge. It's written in the Old Testament of the Bible. Profound things have been said in the Bible. For instance, it is written in the Old Testament that my people are dying from a lack of knowledge. And that's certainly true. Today people are dying, they're wasting their lives away because they're ignorant, ill-informed, and unread as to how the world works. And there's another scripture that I think is extremely important that says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Let me say that again. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Simply meaning that as long as civilization does not understand where we have come from, where we are now, and where is the whole human race going in the future, if you don't have that kind of spiritual vision, then we're going to perish. because all of us are nothing more than sitting ducks in the pond. Unless you understand freedom and where it came from and how it was obtained, and unless you start thinking in terms of protecting your rights and your freedoms, the ancient Roman law, and I find ancient Roman law very interesting. Roman law basically said, there was a maxim in Roman law that says, for he who would be deceived, let him. And another maxim in Roman law that says, if you do not defend your rights, you have none. And so this is what I have been trying to get young people to understand, is that you need to educate yourself about how the world really works. Because until such time as you have educated yourself and understand that knowledge is power. And this is very, very important. Because as long as you don't understand how you are being used, how you're being lied to and mistreated, deceived, you're never going to be able to get out of the mess we're in. Knowledge is the key. And unfortunately, too many people are preoccupied with watching television and sports and trying to make a dollar just to stay alive. They don't realize what's really going on behind the scenes in our country of America and around the world. There's a very big story here that needs to be told. Who is running this planet and what are they doing to the human race? Not just to America, but the whole human family on the earth is in serious jeopardy, and it is calling into question the very veracity of human freedom. Unless and until we wake up and begin to take back the sovereignty of our own minds, forget about television, forget about all the nonsensical entertainment that we're bombarded with, and begin to start thinking seriously about your life and where you've come from and where you're going and what's going to happen to your children and your grandchildren when you're gone. You had better start waking up and understanding the world we live in is very, very serious trouble. And we need to wake up and understand how the world really works. That's what I hope to help you do. I'm Jordan Maxwell.
That was awesome, Jordan.
There was a philosopher, I think his name was Socrates, if I'm not mistaken, it was Socrates, who eventually the government, the powers that be, shall we say, in the government of that day in ancient Greece, they came to Socrates and they suggested that he might want to do away with himself. They didn't want to have to do it themselves, so they suggested he might want to commit suicide for the good of all the nation. Why? Why was the government so anxious to have Socrates dead and gone? They said that he was corrupting the youth of Greece. He was corrupting the young people. And what was he doing? He was teaching them, he was teaching young people the facts of life, how the world works, to question government, question authority, question with the people around you. Don't just buy into anything because you're ignorant and ill-informed. Question everything. Begin to read and study on your own and begin to question powerful people, powerful governments. And so Socrates began causing young people to think too much. And eventually they had to get rid of him. He was too popular, so the government didn't want to kill him, so they just asked him to do it himself. So the same thing, the more we change, the more we stay the same. Nothing changes, and so there's nothing new under the sun. And so today, just recently, with the the rioting and revolution going on in China in Tiananmen Square, it was interesting that Henry Kissinger made this statement when this activity was going on in China, when young people were rising up against the government in Tiananmen Square. The news people asked Kissinger what he thought was going on. Why were these young people doing this? And he said, and his comment was, that it was tape recordings, cassette tapes were the culprit in causing this uprising and revolution in China. And what he was saying was that young people here and from China who are living here in America, who were enjoying the fruitage of freedom and liberty and justice and education and knowledge, were making tapes, cassette tapes, and sending them back to their friends back home, to young people, their young friends back home, and their young friends back in China were reproducing those tapes. Everybody has a tape recorder, so they were reproducing tapes, and before you know it, all the kids in China were listening to cassette tapes about freedom, liberty, questioning authority, questioning your masters, and questioning who supposedly owns you, and question your decisions in life. And so basically education caused a revolution. So it was a revelation which brought a revolution. And it was all caused by young people sending each other cassette tapes. So the same thing we see, in China, we saw in ancient Greece, when the great philosopher was teaching young people how to think, and they were spreading that message to other young people. What happened? It caused a revolution. And if there's ever been a time in the human race and the history of the human family on the earth that we need an intellectual, spiritual renaissance, we don't need revolutions in the street. It's quite simple. All we actually need, the civilization on the earth needs, is a spiritual and intellectual renaissance. A time when people will begin to hold important knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, questioning authority, questioning the governmental system under which you labor. It's a very important point that knowledge is a basis for power. Let me give you an example. Suppose you have a two-story building and you're going to put a lot of weight on the second floor. Before you put heavy, like printing presses and all that kind of thing, before you put any heavy weight on the second floor, go downstairs with a ladder and get a building inspector and go up through the ceiling tiles on the first floor and look at the foundation of the second floor to see if it's going to hold that kind of weight. So what you're doing is you're going downstairs, you're going down under the foundation, and you're standing under the foundation to see if the foundation is going to hold that kind of weight. So what you're doing is you're standing under what you're going to build on. That's where we get the word understanding. So unless you are able to go beneath the surface of any subject, you don't understand. And so it's time that you begin to understand the world you live in, how the government really works. It doesn't work the way you think it does. Banks do not loan money. There's a law in America that says no bank can loan money, period. That's the law. Now, how many people go to get a loan from a bank know that the law in America says no banks can loan money? How many people know that? So once you begin to understand that banks don't loan money, I mean, think about it. Just reason for a moment. Suppose I put my $100,000 of my money into a bank, and 2 days later you come in and want to buy a boat for $200,000 or $100,000, and the bank is going to give you my $100,000 to buy your boat. No possible way is that going to happen. Banks do not have the authority to take my money and give it to you. And if you don't pay, then what? I just lost my money because they gave you my money. That's not the way banks work. Banks do not loan money. The way it works is very simple. Suppose you're buying a $30,000 car, $50,000 car. That car, first of all, has to be appraised by a state-approved appraiser. So you have a government appraiser appraise the car for its value. And let's say it's $50,000. Therefore, the paperwork on which that paperwork, which represents that $50,000 car, is referred to in commerce and business as commercial paper. And that piece of paper represents $50,000 in business. So so what happens is, if you decide you want to buy the car, the dealership sends the paper to the bank. So now the bank has a $50,000 worth of commercial paper. What the bank does is they open up a bank account in your name without you knowing it. All banks do this. They open up a bank account in your name. They sign your name on the bank account, because you can't open a bank account without a signature. So they sign your name on a bank account and open up a bank account for you. But you don't know that. Then they take the $50,000 in commercial paper, which represents $50,000, and they put it into your account. So now you have a bank account in their bank with $50,000 in it. And then they take that bank account and they write a check on that for you. So the first check, for the first $50,000, they write for you, and they sign it for you and give it to you so you can give it to the dealer. So you think that the bank has loaned you $50,000. No. The bank merely gave you credit on the commercial paper which they are holding. They are confirming that they have the $50,000 in the bank with the paper. They're holding the pink slip. Therefore, they will give you a credit of $50,000 based on your commercial paper. So they didn't give you anything. You gave them $50,000 on commercial paper. They just gave you a credit, and so that's the way it works. There is no money changing hands. Now let me give you another example that's even easier to understand. Suppose you were a painting contractor, and I hire you to paint my office, and you tell me it's going to cost $100 to paint my office. Well, the way it works in business, in commercial business, is that I agree to your bill of $100. So when you're through with the job, you come to me and you give me a bill, and the bill is for $100. The same thing if you go to Sears or any market or whatever, and you buy something, they're going to give you a bill. You're expected to pay it. All right, so you as a painting contractor have painted my room. When you're through, you give me a bill, and the bill I read is $400. I reach in my wallet and I pull out a $100 bill and I give it to you. Now you have been paid because I gave you a $100 bill. No, I didn't pay you anything. I paid you nothing. You gave me a bill for $100. I reach in my wallet, I give you a bill for $100. It's called a $100 bill. So now you owe me $100. It's a bill. Look on the $100 bill, and at the top it says a Federal Reserve note. It's a bank note, meaning you now owe me $100. It's a bank note. And so if you had given me a bill for $20, I give you a $20 bill. So all we're doing is just exchanging bills. That's why banks are called banks of exchange. So we're just exchanging paper. Nobody has bought anything. And because of that, the law basically says in America, you cannot pay a bill. So understand, when you say that you've got a bill that you have to pay, you cannot pay a bill in America. That's the law. But you can discharge a debt. That's different. Discharging a debt is different from paying a bill. Since you didn't pay for anything, since you're using the Federal Reserve note and you're buying something, you did not pay for the bill. You didn't pay the bill. So therefore, whatever it is you're buying, you don't own. You don't own anything. It was just a bill of exchange. So they gave you something, you give them something. They give you something worth $100 bill, and I gave them a bill for $100. So the bottom line on the way commerce works is that nobody pays anyone, period. Therefore, in point of fact, by law, no one owns anything in America. No one. So that's why you don't own your home. You don't own your car. And once you understand how the world works, it's an extraordinary story, a betrayal of the human family. Very, very interesting, dark stuff that we are not aware of. There's another law that says any official vehicle that is owned by the state, whatever state you happen to live in, the state has its own vehicles. And therefore, any state vehicle will have on the vehicle, I don't care what it is, a truck, car, motorcycle, it doesn't matter. It will have on the license or near the license, it will always have for official use only. A little sticker or a little print on the vehicle, whatever it is, and it will say for official use only. That means that this vehicle, whatever it is, 16-wheeler or a motorcycle, it doesn't matter. It's for official use only, means it's owned by the state. And anyone who's using it is officially using it for the state, not for themselves. Therefore, anytime you are going to register your car, you get a little tag in the mail, and you peel off the tag, and you're going to stick it on your car. When you get that tag, read it. Read on the tag, it says for official use only. So you're peeling it off and putting it on your car, so now your car has official use only, meaning the state owns your car. And since the state owns your car, they would like to know where their car is. So that's why once a year you have to register your car. You've got to register it to let them know where the car is, because they own the car. And incidentally, that also is why you have to have insurance and a seat belt. It's because you do not own your body. The government owns your body, in point of fact. And so your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange, and the corporation that owns you, and you are owned. There are laws that expressly say that you are owned. You just don't know it. And since you are owned, your owners do not want you to get hurt, so that they have to take care of you, because you're a security on the New York Stock Exchange. So you must carry insurance. Well, I mean, that makes sense if you've got a stock on the stock market. If you can insure it, that's even better. And so that's why you have to have a license, you have to have insurance. You can't get married without a license, because everything in our life is a business. Getting married is a business. That's why you have to have a license to get married. The word license simply means a permit to do something, which without that permit is unlawful. Therefore, is totally unlawful for you to in any way, shape, or form have any relationship with a male or female intimately without a license. So that's why you have to have a license to get married. Why? It's because you are considered by law a maritime admiralty product. It's a very big story, very, very deep, and most people have never heard such a thing. But the bottom line is, what I'm telling you is absolutely true. All you have to do is just start reading a little bit about how commerce works, how government works, how banks work. It's a fascinating story about how the world in no possible way works the way you think it does. So all I'm suggesting is that you might want to, for the first time in your life, start thinking seriously about where you're going and where your country is going, and what's going to happen to your children and your grandchildren when you wake up one day to discover your freedoms are gone, your country is gone, your protections that were guaranteed to you as a citizen are gone. We are going to be in very serious trouble because we are ill-informed, unread, undisciplined, and have been taught to bow down and curtsy before royalty. We fall all over ourselves with celebrities, and all we understand anymore is the ball games and the sports and the entertainment. But nobody is suggesting that we might want to start reading the foundations of this country, begin to read and understand how government really works. Once you begin to see how a bank works, why do you have a bank? Why do we do any banking? Banks are found on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. What does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency, because your money is called currency because it's a ebb and flow of a current, and it's called liquid asset. And when you can't pay for something, then you're underwater. It's an extraordinary story, as I said, about the deception that goes on throughout the world about the real world and how it actually works. So all I'm suggesting is that you might want to take some time out of your life and start looking at the reality of the world you live in, because the world is growing more and more dangerous, more and more ignorant, and extremely violent. And unless and until the people rise up and decide to take back their sovereignty and do something about their lives and quit waiting for government to do something, because in America, we Americans love to talk about how we have the ability to elect our leaders. We're big on talking about how we can elect our leaders. But as Dick Gregory once said a long time ago, yes, we can elect our leaders, but you can't select your leaders. You don't select anyone. Your masters who own you will select who will run. You can merely vote on whoever they decide to allow you to vote on.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the next one right here on this channel. Thank you for watching.